Welcome everybody back to Boost Emotion, guys. And today I have to have a conversation with y'all. It is 2023, and we are now in August. And one of the top questions that I still get asked at Boost Emotion on IG, top question is, Boost, should I purchase a Q50 3.0T in 2023? Is it reliable? Is it a good starter car? Is it a car that can make good performance? Plenty of questions. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys my personal opinion on owning two different VR30s, the Q50 2018 and the 2017 Q60, both with a VR30 and tuning both of them. All right, so guys, let's jump into the video. First thing, shout out to my whole Boost Motion family. Thank you guys for your support. And if you're new to the Boost Motion channel, you should definitely hit the subscribe button with the bell notification. This channel has been built on giving very informative knowledge and making a couple other videos and getting into other brands because, I've had two other Mercedes, C63 and the E63, so I've been pretty chilled. But in this video, I want to give you guys my honest opinion because this video actually came from Speed Coaches. Shout out to Speed Coaches. Me and him been in this platform, the Q50 platform, for years now, like ever since the inception. And I saw his video. He came out pretty much dropping saying does Q50s break. So I want to give you guys my honest opinion from owning two of them and modifying two of them and my personal experience and from the friends and people I know around and for being kind of like the funnel. I've probably spoken to at least over 5,000 to 6,000 Q50 owners in the last 4 to 5 years. I'm talking about people like you guys who want to modify your car. From videos I put up to even on my Instagram when people ask me questions, which I don't do anymore, unless you guys want to subscribe to my Instagram and help and support me, because it was so much questions back in the day. But anyways, I don't want you guys to wait any longer. So first thing I want to sit there and say is, in the positives, is Q50s, VR30s a good platform to start off with to make power? Yes. Everyone has said it plenty of time. The VR30 is a pretty stout motor. It is now in the new Nissan Z, so it's going to seem like it's going to continue to be around for at least the next 4 to 5 years because the Nissan Z is out. Okay, so that's a good thing. This motor has pretty much came out in the USA ever since 2016. We're in 2023, so it's about 8 years of this car being mass produced. Now, I think it's a very affordable car that gives plenty of options because you can get a rear-wheel drive, you can get an all-wheel drive, you can get it in a four-door, and you can get it in two-door, right? And it's more of a mild luxury car. Let's give it that, right? Some of the downfalls. This isn't a full sports car. This is not a full sports car. This is a more of a luxurious, entry-level luxurious car. When you get this car, guys, I don't want you guys to get into this car and think, oh my God, it has to have a little limited slip differential. It has to have this, it has to have that. Like some of the things that more high-end sport cars or luxury cars would have, this car doesn't have. This is more of an entry level. So always remember that. And if you can walk into there knowing that, you wouldn't be let down. All right. Now, some of my own, I would say, critiques on owning both my VR30 Q50 and Q60. So when I had my VR30 Q50, you go back on my whole channel, on my channel, and see when I modified the Q50. I'm gonna say it on video. I modified the Q50 on 93 fuel from AMS Performance. It was full bolt-on on 93 fuel, and I had a lot of fun with that car. I ended up getting rid of the car because it got into an accident. I returned it as a lease, but also before that, about a year before that, one of my turbos started leaking oil. It didn't necessarily affect the performance of the vehicle. At least it didn't show on the drag racing and times and everything, but it was leaking, and it wasn't a repair. It was a repair that would necessarily it would need a rebuild, pretty much, the driver's side turbo. So you can definitely check on my channel. It's called Blown Turbos Q50, and I can show where it's leaking, right? Now, was that oil leaking? It was leaking as if from what I could see externally from the turbo. I didn't really pick it up out the exhaust. It didn't smell like that, but for whatever reason, it was leaking. Cool. Now, I had a lot of good time with that car. It was really fun times with that car. I don't want to get into the options, everything. I think the car was really good for what it's worth. I literally did modifications like upgrading the brakes from the regular non-baby brakes to the Ecobonos, downpipes, exhaust, heat exchangers. I did it all. Not all. I had a lot of fun with that car. Nonetheless, I got rid of it. Now I have the 2017 Q60 3.0T Sport. Now this car was more optioned up with more features, which I did love a lot about the car. It was pretty much fully loaded. I didn't drive the car as I did drive the car a lot, but I didn't drive it as much because at the same time I was actually an owner of a 2015 Mercedes C63. So between driving both cars, I didn't put much miles onto the Q60. That car was actually tuned up onto E30 mix E85 and 93 tune. Shout out to Gold Racebox. They were the tuner of that vehicle, and that car made good, decent power too. Had a good time with the car, but honestly, I'm not really a four-door lover, and ended up getting rid of the car because I ended up moving life stuff. I didn't need to have the car anymore. But I gotta say that car was the best for me because I owed so little on it. My car note was like $295, like literally, and I ended up selling the car for more than what it was worth. Thank you for the, the beer virus we dealt with, and car prices going so high. So I got in and out of that car for pretty much free. It was good time. Now, all in all, both cars I had a good time with. I have a video also on my channel called "Which Car Should You Buy, Q50 or Q60?" Because I had both, and I actually have both, and I do a breakdown review of both of them. So you can go check that out on my channel too if you would like to take a look. Now, the only downfall I could sit there and say was that one of the turbos started leaking. That is all. Now, knowing that I've been in this platform, both cars are probably making, both Q60 made about 450 wheel on 93. I never got car dynoed on E85 because I ended up getting rid of the car. But E30 usually makes about like 470, close to 480 wheel. So the car probably made an additional power. That's it. Same thing with the 92 and Q50 is probably very similar and around the time. And the quickest time I did on the Q50 on 93 was like 11.8. At like 121 miles an hour because the car was spinning. And the Q60 never actually got to do a quarter mile time with it. And the eighth mile time I did was kind of terrible because the car wasn't fully tuned properly. That was my fault. So nonetheless, the cars were great. I enjoyed it. I think they're very unique cars. Now, let's stop talking all flowery about it. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty. Boost now. Thank you for giving you all your experience and what you've done to the car and the fun you had modifications. You told us that one turbo started leaking. Okay, so should I get the car though? You had two of them. Should you? And I'm gonna be quite honest with you guys. Not like my subscribers gonna like it. I want to sit there and preface it by saying this. They've made a lot of massive amount of these Q50s, Q60s with the VR30s. There's plenty of them driving on the road that necessarily don't have issues. But we are a unique group of people that get these cars and modify them for additional performance. So understand that we are basically the test dummies, the testers of what parts are reliable and what parts are not. Just to be honest with you, we're not grannies over here. So now that I prefaces this, should you get a VR30 to modify in 2023 and moving on in the so future? I'm going to tell you guys this. Be wary. I've been in this community for long enough that I've seen at least or have had DMs from at least probably 200 to 300 people. I would say close to 300 people in just the last 2 years about them having a coolant consumption issue. Pretty much. This is pretty much when Infinity never looked into it because I guess it's not on a grander scale. This is why I don't want to say that this is a large, massive problem because we're different people. It affects a small amount of people, right? Pretty much what I'm assuming is the engine is eating certain coolant. Maybe the head gasket is lifting and causing excessive coolant to be going down to the combustion chamber and out the exhaust. I've seen this on people cars who are modified and people cars who are stock. Let's just be fair there. Okay. Number 2, people have gotten their turbos replaced, modified and not modified. That's the second thing. Number 2. Number 3, necessarily, to be quite honest with you guys, some people actually ran into rod knock. Rod knock is pretty much when you run low on oil and then thus, boom, the engine goes. Now, knowing that this exists mainly with us as people who modify the cars, we modify for performance. Does that mean that the cars are not reliable? No, that doesn't mean they're not reliable. It's just that people are going to run into issues. But does it mean that these problems are common enough? Yes. Yes, I have to say that on the video. Yes, because if you're going to get the car for intended use, and there is a common trait and problem that happens because of you put A plus B and it makes C, and it ends up with their eating coolant, blown turbos, or rod knock. That is a common enough issue for the person that's modifying the car. As much as we used to make, at least much as we make fun of STIs, as much as I make fun of BMWs having to change their crank hubs, their rod bearings in the older vehicles and everything, they have common issues, right? I can't say this is something that's a staple that has to be done, but understand that it could happen to you. It's not that if it won't happen. It depends on when. You see what I'm saying? It all depends on, necessarily, in my opinion, when, depending on what you are using the car for its intended use. I also want to be fair and put an asterisk here, because some of the people are going to offend it depends on the driver too. Because I've met people with JB4 and tuned vehicles who have a 10, 15, 20,000 miles and 30,000 miles on either new car or older car, and they don't have any issues because they don't go racing and beat it on the car all the time like it's a freaking S55 motor. You know what I'm saying? They're not doing that. They're getting this car, and they're pretty much every now they have additional power, but they're not beating on the car. They're doing frequent oil changes, fluid changes, these things that are necessary and important for the car to be maintained properly over time. Most of the guys on this channel don't even change the transmission fluid on this vehicle. You're supposed to do a drain and fill. Infiniti back in the day said you shouldn't do it, but even now they said you should do a drain and fill. You should change out the transmission fluid, period. And most of you guys are getting this cars now used 55, 60, 70K. You don't know the last time the transmission fluid was changed out. That's another issue that can happen down the line of some of the people ending up having to change their transmissions. Not common at all, but there are a few people who end up saying that their transmission been shifting real sluggish. And they looked into it, transmission fluid was blacker than black. And they heated up their the clutch packs in their transmission, so they had to get a whole transmission replaced. Not often though. This is not a common thing. That's definitely not a common thing for the VR30s, right? So moving forward, now that you guys ask, well, this is something that could be, a manufacturer defect. No, at this point, it's just inferior design. In my honest opinion, I think it's just an inferior design. I think, in my opinion, that them to have recessed exhaust manifolds for the turbos are absolutely asinine. It would sound like a great technology, but it's not a technology for better flow. It is technology for space saving and packaging. Think about it. You have 3 different exhaust chambers, right, that are shooting off into a cavity like this. Just shooting off into a cavity. Anyone who knows that exhaust manifold is pretty much a header. You have the tubes and it increases flow. We all know that, right? But the way it's designed for packaging is pretty much damn near a square motor, right? All the exhaust from the 3 chambers are going into a square slash oval. That's terrible flow. And then now it's being forced into a tiny turbo, right, with no flow direction and shot out. There's no flow direction. There's no scavenging effect. So these turbos are pretty much just already tiny. They already have their own issues as it is for being so small. There's no proper amount of flow, right? And air just pretty much it's just being forced to the fact that there's so much, I would say, bear with me guys, there's so much buildup of PSI, a pressure built behind the turbos between the exhaust valves and the turbos that necessarily, I'm surprised these things never had exhaust leaks. So I guess the Infiniti got that right for them not to have exhaust leaks between the turbo and exhaust valves. But this is another thing that affects the car. If you can't get that exhaust out fast enough, which means past these turbines on the turbos, guess where that exhaust sits? Guess where it sits? When that exhaust valve opens back up now, right? To push, that piston is pushing up to push that hot exhaust out. Depending on the threshold of how much exhaust pressure is there versus what's pushing, it makes the car work harder and harder and harder, right? To be able to get that exhaust out because it's an air pump. And you can't keep pushing air into something where it's very close to your threshold. So this wears out your bearings over time. This increases the amount of wear on your piston bearings. I don't want to say piston bearings. Oh shit, I'm saying the wrong thing. Your piston rings. right? You're pushing more and you're putting excessive wear on these mechanical components when you turn up the amount of PSI. So when you hear these guys sit there and say, hey, I'm running 25, 30 PSI, do you guys know that that means how much pressure is building up within the system uh, before it actually goes in the combustion chamber? If it was a very flowy intake manifold that flows a lot better, the PSI actually might be a lot less. But that's just because of the threshold about how much air is actually being withheld before it even goes in the combustion chamber. We don't know how much PSI is between that turbo, the hot side of the turbo, and the exhaust valves. At least I haven't seen that metric. So these things continue to affect the VR30 over time. It's an inferior design in my honest opinion. Just looking at the theoretics, after looking at how different engines do different things, and seeing what is affecting us. Um, and lastly, and once again, it's the same thing with all these things I'm speaking of. I mean, can I be right? Yes. Can I be wrong? 100%. I'm not an engineer, even though I was studying to be one. It's just I'm sorry for making this boring and long and throw it out, but I've been in this community for so long, and I've just looked into why isn't this platform better. I've been told, oh my God, we don't get enough aftermarket support. We don't get this. We don't get that. No, we have some good tuners in this platform, and we have some good performance parts made for this platform at this point. So what are we necessarily missing? What can make this platform better? Reliability. Honestly, reliability, but the reliability would have to come into engineering a better motor, a better design, a better packaging, which Infiniti is not going to do. Period. I don't think they're going to do that at all. But shout out to, I'll give an honorable mention to Z1 Motorsports. They designed aftermarket full frame OEM turbos that are designed to work just like OEMs with a better design exhaust side. And there's way more better control, and this is probably has a lot less back pressure, on the exhaust valves, and a lot more better flow for the turbo itself. Probably a lot more healthier. So shout out to Z1 Motorsports for doing that. So that's something I'm not sponsored by Z1 Motorsports. They don't do stuff like that. But knowing that that's something that actually exists, that's something that some people have chose to do even with their pure turbos. Something very similar where it's like there won't be, but those are still limited based on their wastegate size and everything. It's just that the wastegate size on the Z1 Motorsports turbos are a lot better. Or if someone wanted to just say screw these OEM turbos and go with like a Bonnie and Clyde kit, which they don't choose to sell anymore, or Drop Bear, which I don't know if he's going to come out with a full upgrade turbo kit, or any other a company in the future that chooses to just scrap OEM design and go with an actual exhaust manifold to a turbo itself. And I bet you that excuse me guys, I bet you that those cars will probably last a little bit longer. If they fail, it's because of extreme power, not because the exhaust design, I would say. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, I don't want to keep talking. So then boost. So what would be your opinion then? So I just get a stock VR30 and just call it a day? No, I still think that you should definitely modify these cars. You should definitely do downpipes, full catted downpipe or lower downpipe with exhaust if you're choosing. Get a heat exchanger for your vehicle and do frequent oil changes and front and rear differential if you all-wheel drive and transmission fluid changes for this vehicle. And get it tuned properly by any one of the good reputable tuners in this platform on 93 or 91. I think when you start getting to E85, you are going to continue to run into a little bit of issues because E85 is a little bit more toxic to the fuel system. There are some reliability issues that do come in running with E85 long term for this platform. So just keep it on 91, 93 and call it a day. I think this platform is really cool for 400 to 450 wheel. Period. That's on stock turbos and call it a day. Change your oil's frequency every 2,000 to 3,000 miles. That doesn't matter if it's a 0W30 or a 0W20. I still recommend 0W30, even though people are going back and forth between it. Infiniti has recommended 0W30 depending on the ambient temperature outside. So shut the hell up, guys. So that's my best recommendation. Just leave it there. That's when you're going to get the most amount of reliability. Don't beat on a car as if it's a race car. You should not be racing this car every day as if it's an NA vehicle, a naturally aspirated vehicle, or if it's built for it. It's not a race motor. You see what I'm saying? And over time, if you keep beating on these cars, it will let you know it can't take it anymore. Now, here's another thing that people like to use as a comparison. Well, what about this to B58s? What about this to the C450s, C43s, and anything from Audi that's pretty much anything 6-cylinder that has a turbo that's pretty much newer out there? How do I think it compares? You can't compare this to any real M car, let's be honest with you. And any other M cars cars that's under M's like a C43 and an M54 and pretty much a B58. From looking in the B58 platform, their motors are more reliable. They designed their motors better for the long term. They looked at the structure, how to keep this motor running and keep it strong over time. Period. The C450s or C43s, I really haven't seen too many crazy things going on. At least no issues that we have been having. But remember, not a lot of people get those cars to modify it. Most people get those C43s, C450s just to drive around because it's a Benz. They're not really doing nothing crazy. So they're just fully new to this platform and doing stuff like that. And the same thing for the S4s. A lot of people do modify S4s, but it seems like they're not really trying to build it to be super fast. They usually end up getting an RS3 or RS6 or RS7. They usually don't get like an S4, S5 like that to really modify, right? Or RS version RS5s. So I realized that. So, and much other cars such as the Kia Stinger and a couple other vehicles, the Genesis and these other motors, they're out here, but there's not enough people modifying those cars to really see what their threshold is. There are a couple, but it's not on a level of like Q50s, Q60s. Infinities get modded, period. That's it. Our cars get modded. We're out there. We're everywhere. We're at the car shows. We're at the racetracks. We're everywhere, period. Nissan Infiniti runs deep, period. No matter what, we are in motorsports. We slide, we race, we drag. We do everything, period. And we parking lot kissers. We're sidewalk kissers, whatever you want to call it. So, in my honest opinion, to bring this video close, I'm sorry for making it so long. Should you purchase a Q50, Q60, VR30 in this platform in 2023 for modifying? I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes, but it depends on what your end goal is. If you want to get the car and not do too much to it, like which most of you guys do, a heat exchanger, maybe a downpipe, stock exhaust, yes. 400 to 450 wheel, call it a day, nothing crazy. Understand it's not the car, not supposed to be beat on as if it's a race car. Now, if you want to get this car because you've seen people make 500, 600, 700, 800 wheel horsepower on stock motor and stock transmission, which have already been done. Understand it's not if it's gonna happen, it's when it's gonna happen. Period. This motor was not built to be taking that abuse every day, all day. It wasn't built for that. So understand, when you start getting into the game like that, yes, the car will make some power. But understand that at some point, you will get limited on the amount of power. And the chassis is just not designed for that. It's a 4,000-pound car. The amount of money and time that you may put into the car, at the end of the day, may not yield the same results as like a B58 or even getting a Mustang and throwing a blow on it, especially the prices. And another thing I will throw in this video is, if you come to this platform, don't tell me you want to buy a 2022 Q50, Q60, or whatever. Don't do that. It's the same car. It's literally the same car. I've been in this platform long enough. Just get an older one, like a 2018 if you really care about the looks of like a Q50. Get like a 2018 with just lower mileage and call it a day. You know? If you want to go a little farther back and get a 2016 Red Sport, which is pretty much the same freaking car all the years except for the bumpers and stuff. And some small amount of tech, but nothing important, right? Go far back. At least you'll save $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on the price of the car. And if you do want to modify, use the money that you save and you modify the car to what you would like. That's my recommendation. If you do want to do that, just understand that it's not if it's gonna happen. It's just when, depending on how much you want to beat on it. All right. So outside that, guys, you have a good morning, good afternoon, good night. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys for always showing your support to your boy boostinmotion. Happy I'm back sitting behind this. Like I want to change up the back a little bit. So I'm gonna make some changes, man. This been up for a while. I still like the shirt and the speed limit enforced, but I do want to change the background a little bit and make it look a little more cooler. So we'll see. But definitely hit the like buttons, comment below, let me know what how much miles you have on your Q50. Put the year and the miles of the Q50, Q60 that you have, VR30, in the comments below. And just say no issues. Or just put the year and miles and say two turbos replaced, motor replaced, transmission. Then maybe this video could be very helpful to people who are looking to purchase this car in the future for modifying purposes. All right. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day. Thank you.